a mí me parece que el papel de los medios, de la prensa, de los periódicos, de los diarios, y televisión, de radio, es tener con el poder siempre una relación de independencia. Nuestro compromiso como periodistas, como editores de revistas, de diarios, no es con los anunciantes, no es con el gobierno, no es con los amigos, no es con la oposición, no es con la situación. Nuestro compromiso es con la opinión pública, y en especial con nuestros lectores, y con esos que nos tenemos que ser esta relación, y con el gobierno, con el poder, tenemos que tener una relación de independencia, que no significa que debemos tener una relación de permanente oposición. No, usted tiene que ver las cosas buenas que lo que el poder hace para transmitirlo, pero siempre con un distanciamiento crítico. Así yo lo veo. Así.
Los medios de comunicación tienen que actuar como un contrapoder. Y eso implica varias cosas. Tenemos que mantener nuestra independencia del poder. Eso es clave. Tenemos que ejercer nuestro oficio con transparencia. Nosotros tenemos una tradición en Estados Unidos que se llama el periodismo de contabilidad, de ser el perro guardián contra el poder. Y eso implica tratar de ir a donde los que están en el poder, hacerles las preguntas, hacerles las investigaciones, manteniendo nuestra independencia. Ahora, en la era digital tenemos muchas más herramientas para hacer eso que habíamos tenido antes. Pero por el otro lado también el Estado o los en el poder también tienen herramientas para esconder los hechos, para esconder la verdad. Yo creo que nuestra relación con el poder tiene que ser marcado dentro de la búsqueda de la verdad. Y esa es la cosa esencial del periodismo.
Siempre ha de ser una de distancia, ¿no? De análisis crítico, de mantener bajo control todas sus actividades, de ser la voz de los ciudadanos frente al poder, ¿no? A veces sucede o ha sucedido mucho en España últimamente, por ejemplo, que los políticos rehúyen las preguntas de los periodistas, no contestan y creen que de alguna manera están humillando al periodista o están esquivando al periodista. En realidad lo que están haciendo es despreciando a la opinión pública. Los periodistas no somos más que la voz de los ciudadanos a la hora de interpelar al poder. Por tanto, nuestra posición respecto al poder siempre tiene que ser de control, lejana, de sospechar de todas sus actividades, de poner en cuestión todas sus declaraciones, de someter a escrutinio sus cifras, sus actividades. Es cierto, y esa es la gran crítica que estamos escuchando en los últimos años, también gracias a la revolución de las nuevas tecnologías e Internet, que está dando poder a la gente para expresar directamente sus opiniones. Digo, gracias a eso estamos escuchando también críticas hacia los medios tradicionales de que no hemos sabido en ocasiones mantener nuestra distancia respecto al poder, respecto a los poderes. Y estoy hablando en general no solamente del gobierno, estoy hablando también de los partidos, aunque estén en la oposición, estoy hablando de los poderes financieros, estoy hablando de los bancos, de los sindicatos, de la Iglesia, de cualquiera que es capaz de hacer oír su discurso. Y es verdad que a veces los periódicos, como somos parte de la democracia y los periódicos se inventaron más o menos al mismo tiempo, hace unos 200 años, y en algún caso hemos estado demasiado cerca de ese establishment, hemos formado parte también de esas relaciones complejas del poder, y los ciudadanos a veces, y con razón, nos lo han reprochado. Pero yo creo que hay una conciencia clara entre los periodistas, entre los medios, de que esa es nuestra tarea y que en cuanto perdamos esa capacidad de mantener esa distancia con el poder, perdemos nuestra credibilidad, perdemos nuestra función y corremos el riesgo no solo de servir mal a nuestros respectivos periódicos, radios, televisiones, sino también a la sociedad y en última instancia a la democracia, que es el objetivo último de los periódicos, ¿no?
I think the relationship is a good one in that the relationship is not that close. I think Britain has a very vigorous traditional media. I include in that news organisations like the BBC and Channel 4 TV and 10 to 12 national newspapers who have a healthy cynicism, if you like, towards power and political life. Healthy because there is a point at which I think cynicism is unhealthy and corrosive and can destabilize people and institutions. But I don't think that that is the case in Britain. I think the news organisations that I mentioned are aggressive when they need to be aggressive, respectful if that is called for, and I think they are relatively good at doing what news organisations need to do in a democracy, which is hold people of power to account. That includes people in business, that includes people in government. It's not always easy. It's probably less easy to do that with powerful business consortia than it is with government. In fact, Britain is also hamstrung by having some very severe libel laws which make it even more difficult for news organisations in Britain to get at the truth. I mean, obviously, news organisations do lots of great things about arts coverage and sports and fashion, but at the heart, if we're not making life difficult for people in power, then we shouldn't be doing it. And I can only hope that the relationship which exists now doesn't deteriorate and weaken the news organisations in Britain, because at the moment it is a reasonably good relationship. It's vigorous and it's aggressive, and I think we do go in pursuit of powerful people and powerful institutions where the law allows us.
I think the relationship these days is more complicated because we enter a kind of era of suspicion. Like the public is very suspicious about the relationship between the media and the politicians. Sometimes they will believe that we are in the same camp. It's very important for the media to express their position. We are on the reader's side. We are independent. The politicians will always be in a situation of trying to seduce you. We will always be in a situation of resisting. It doesn't mean that we don't talk together, but we talk, but we have to have a very clear barrier between the media and the politicians. We have to be very careful about what they are trying to, the limit between communications and journalism. I mean, they're always trying now, these days, like actors, to have a stage interviews, photos. They will release some photos. We have to be very careful to know about these photos because they are part of a communication movement. So that's one of the key elements these days. Politicians are communicating more than they used to do. They used to be more candid. They used to be in the 60s or in the 50s. Now you are like an actor. They are like actors, or they are like movie stars, and they are communicating, and we have to be very careful about not getting into this trap. So the questioning is very important. The fact checking is very important, because that's why the public expects from us these days.
Well, what it should be is quite different from often what it is. The traditional relationship, traditional in our minds, is that the media is there to keep a check on power, to investigate any potential wrongdoing, to keep our politicians honest. That's the traditional take. The circumstances in my country, the United Kingdom, as well as many others, I think, is often not quite that simple, especially of recent date. But I think perhaps always the media have also been an instrument, traditionally, for projecting the voice of power, because there is a close relationship very often between journalists and political parties. Very often journalists are members of or closely affiliated to people who are in positions of power. And so very often we find ourselves listening to the voice of the politicians through the traditional media instead of questioning that voice. there has been recently in Britain a rather interesting debate about, within the media, about whether or not the press and the media more generally are too contemptuous of the political class, the traditional figure of speech used particularly by one of our more famous television interviewers, Jeremy Paxman. The traditional figure of speech is to say that the position of the traditional journalist should be always, when interviewing a politician, why is this bastard lying to me? There has been something of a move away from that traditional position by members of the press who are saying this can be needlessly, this contempt for politicians can be needlessly destructive. These people are, after all, trying within the best of their ability and within the limits of the game of politics to produce something, and if you're always going to treat them as people who are inherently liars and by implication inherently corrupt, this is damaging the body politic and eventually damaging the media as well. So there is an interesting debate about how far should you always operate on the assumption, why is this bastard lying to me? My own point of view is that that's the more comfortable and proper place to be suspicious, but I think there is a line to be drawn between being suspicious and starting off from the position that your interlocutor is a villain.
Well, I don't think it's useful to talk about relationship between traditional media and power. It's all media and power. And because traditional media is being interacted with and overrun by new media, so it's all an ecosystem where everybody's acting together. So let's talk about the relationship between media and power. The relationship should be one of skepticism but not cynicism. The media should be a check on power. It should ask tough questions. And when I talk about power, I talk not just about government, but business, which is the locus of a lot of power, also unions, also the education system, also the court system. There are multiple sites of power, and we in the media need to be skeptical about what they present to us. We need to ask the tough questions. We don't want to be derisive or cynical or thinking that everyone is a liar, but neither should we be simply megaphones, repeaters of what they want to tell us.